Hi there, everybody. We're just going to give it a minute to let everybody in, but my name is Ben. I'm a senior coding specialist here. I'll be the one showing you just a little bit of coding today. If I'm wildly looking left and right, it's because I've got two large screens with lots of things in front of me. The purpose of this particular webinar is to show people what coding is. So I want to be quite clear about that. If anybody here has done any coding before, that's great. This might be a little bit basic for you, but stick around because you'll at least get a sense of what we do here, what our training looks like, how it's delivered. And ultimately, what we do here at the Learning People is help people to take those first steps into a new career in their chosen field. So for the most part, that's what my job is, to keep myself up to date on the industry and exactly what people are going to need to achieve careers in tech, and in particular in coding. We focus on this quite a lot today because that's a large chunk of the inquiries that we get are from people that are interested in pursuing careers in coding for lots of reasons. Careers in coding are very flexible. You can work from home, be your own boss, travel, make loads of money. If that's what you're interested in. But whatever you want for your life and your future, learn to code because it's you can have it basically. And here at the Learning People, I would say, if I could sum us up in just a few words, I would say that we are we specialise in career-ready education. And I'd say we're most easily described as a career change school or a career start school, because everything that we do here is all geared around students, usually from a point where we assume they know absolutely nothing, working all the way up to a point where they've got everything that they need to get that first job. And then we actually help each and every student to get that first job as well. Without further ado, I want to show you guys a little bit of coding today. What I'm going to be showing you is actually a coding assessment that we can give to any of you guys if you want to have a play around with it. Because we find that we get a lot of inquiries from people interested in coding, but they haven't necessarily done any coding themselves before. So this is a really great way to figure out, is this something that is even a viable option for you? Is it something that you will like doing as a career choice? Is it something you can do and want to do, and so on? And it does a really good job of helping people to determine that. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen with you all so that you can see just a little bit of coding, and I'll talk through some things as we go to just give you a sense of what I'm doing here. We're going to be building a very, very basic website with just a few lines in it, really. But just to give you guys a sense of what coding is, it's a good way. I will answer some questions that have been sent through at the end as well. And then after that, I would just encourage you guys, if you're interested, if you're curious, then get in touch. Everybody here would have had some kind of interaction with us already. Whether it's just an email, or maybe you've had a phone call with us, or maybe just left an inquiry on our website. But get in touch, and we can give this coding assessment to any of you. It's completely free, and like I say, just a great way to figure out if this is something that's right for you. So, 1 minute. So that is me sharing my screen, and there's a few things that I'd like to point out here. So this is what the coding assessment looks like, and don't worry about the code that's there for now. This is just something that I prepared earlier, which is just going to give me an easy way to show you guys some basic stuff. A few things I'll point out. Normally, when you first get started with this, you go through each of these videos here, which talks you through what coding is and so on. I'll give you a brief description of that in just a moment. But you'll work your way through kind of understanding a little bit about coding before getting to this first challenge here, which I'll talk you through. And we're going to be doing, there's 5 lessons here. We're just going to be doing the first lesson and then half of the second lesson, because that's about as much as we probably have time to get through during this session. And I'll happily do another one for the rest later on. But really, I think it would be better if you guys actually try it for yourself once you've seen a little bit. A couple of other things to point out here is that this kind of frame here is just how the training is delivered. You can expand it with this here, and you can see a lot more. Actually, because whenever we share screens, for some reason the code comes up quite small. So I have added just a little bit of code here that's going to make the text just a little bit larger when the website starts coming together, whereas that normally wouldn't be there. So I want to start right at the beginning, just because many of you in the audience probably won't know exactly what coding is. So a brief description of it is that whenever you're building any piece of software, whether it's a website, an app, game, anything, it's going to have code that is going on behind the scenes that basically tell that piece of software what to do. In this case, we're going to be looking at web development just because it's honestly easier to learn. Great place to get started. And you can see here that there is, it starts with HTML. So all websites have an associated HTML file, which basically tells the website what to do. And will also tell the website what content to include. So everything, I'm going to expand it now so you can get a better view, but everything in the website will be between the two HTML things here. So that's what we call an element. So in this case, everything on a website will have an opening and a closing bracket, as you can see here. And you'll get the hang of this as I'm kind of talking you through some of the bits that I'm doing, but everything on a website will be in the opening and closing HTML brackets. And you can see the closing bracket always has a slash in front of it. So you've got the opening one, just HTML, closing one, slash HTML. It's as simple as that. And then anything on a website that you can select all the content, whether it's a header, paragraph, or whatever it might be, all of that will go in what we would call the body element, within the body element. So that's what's actually in the website. The head here just refers to what you're calling this document. In this case, we're calling this day one, challenge one. And like I say, I added this just so you can see the text that I typed below. You won't need to do that later, I just made it a bit larger. So when you're actually going through the coding assessment, you'll watch the videos so that you can get a sense of what it is you're going to be learning about and how to go about doing it. And the video is quite descriptive in the way that it works. But you'll also have this brief on the right-hand side, which is really great for two reasons, I find. Number one, you've got the result here. So you'll always have a result. So that's what it wants us to create, a website that quite literally has 2 words. And I'm going to show you how to do that in just a moment. But then down below and submitting, that's a big description on how to basically press a button that says submit your project. But then you'll also have steps. And this is the most valuable part, I think, because it quite literally gives you a step-by-step guide on what you need to do to complete this particular challenge of building a website that says hello world. So let's get started. Right here it says add a P element. So P only stands for paragraph. All that means is that any time on a website that you see blocks of text, that's a paragraph, and somebody has coded it to be blocks of text. And in this case, it's going to be in the body. So it says you can add it here. I'm just going to add it below that. And all I'm going to do is type in P with an opening pointy bracket, closed pointy bracket, and then you see it's actually created the closing bracket for me there with a slash P. And then anything I put between those two things, those two P's, is going to be the paragraph. So in this case, I'm going to type in what it's asked me to, which is hello world with an exclamation mark. And then when I run my code here, hello world, that's it. We have quite literally just created a website with 2 words. Now it's not especially fancy, but it's a website nonetheless. And that's it. Now I can test my code to make sure I've done it correctly. I got passed all tests, so fantastic. You would simply submit that and then move on to the next one. That's about as much as you'd learn from the first one. In the videos, you go through a little bit more detail and you'd have a little bit more time to kind of understand what these things are. But that is pretty much the nuts and bolts of it. Every website is within an HTML element. And then within that, you'll have body and style, and we'll go through those things in just a moment. But it's quite a straightforward process. Every website has the same kind of fundamental aspects to it. It's just that those things might differ somewhat from one website to another. So let's come out of that and go to the next challenge. So in this challenge, we're going to be learning about how to create a header and then paragraphs below, because that's how a website ultimately comes together. So there's always usually a header at the top of a website and then the information below. and then there's often lots of other things going on around the scene, but that's the nuts and bolts of a website. So let me expand this. Yeah. Again, over here, it's giving you a really good description, so a picture of what you're supposed to create here. And very simply, if I go down to the steps on what it is that I need to do, I have to first off create an H1 element. Now, H1 only stands for header. There are 4. There's H1, 2, 3, and 4. That just automatically sets at different sizes, which you can change later if you wish. In this instance, we're going to build one for H1. When coding, by the way, there's never really any reason to use capital letters, so don't worry about that. And within that H1 header, it's asked us to type in why is HTML so successful. I'll type that here within my H1 element. And I can run my code, and you can see that my header has come up. Nice and easy, that's the top of our website. Now it's asking me to create a P element. That's, as you remember from the previous one, that's just a paragraph. And we're going to type in HTML is easy to learn. Now remember, all of these things are within the body of the website, because that's where everything goes. All of the content on any website is always within the body. And we'll learn about the other parts shortly. So we're going to create a paragraph, and it is HTML. Again, we can run the code, make sure it's come through. Perfect, there it is. And finally, it wants us, the next step, it wants us to add emphasis to the word easy. So what that means is there's another way where you can wrap a word with emphasis, or you can make it bold. So basically, you either turn it into bold or you can italicize it. And the way that you do that, it's called EM. Right here, I would replace easy. You can put it around it, but just like everything else, EM. And you'll learn each of these tags and what each of them mean as you're kind of going through them. I'm obviously showing you these things now, but you'll learn what they are as you go. And I'm just going to type in easy. So all that means is that I've created emphasis on that particular word. So you'll see easy down here. When I run my code, it will change to being italicized to add emphasis to that particular word, should you ever want to when building a website or writing a paragraph or whatever it might be. Next, it wants us to add another paragraph saying that HTML is powerful. So once again, we create another P, a paragraph, and we say HTML is powerful. And then the final step for this particular challenge is to wrap the word powerful in a strong element. And all that means is to make it bold. So you can make any sentence, paragraph, or word bold by simply surrounding it with a strong element. And all that is, just like everything else, again, when I run my code, you'll see it come up, HTML is powerful, and you can see that the powerful is in bold. So now you can see that we have successfully created what it asked us to create over here. Hopefully, if I test my code, it will say it's all correct. Yep, all tests have been passed. I can submit it and move on to another one after that. So this is the basic building blocks of building a website, and I've shown you this in, well, 10 minutes basically, because I waffled on for a little bit at the beginning. So let's move on to something a little bit more interesting, because that's lesson 1, where it's just kind of giving you a sense of the nuts and bolts, the building blocks of building a website and the content and how it's delivered. So if I move on to the next challenge, and of course you guys will watch the videos if you choose to go through this for yourself. But the next challenge is about CSS. Now, If you guys have done any research on these sorts of things before, you may know about CSS already. It stands for Cascading Style Sheets. And all it means is that it's a set of rules that you can apply to your to your headers, to your paragraphs. You can change the font, the size, the color, anything basically. And I'm going to give you an example of that now, because when I expand upon this one, you'll see that on the right here, we're going to be building more onto what we just did. And it's asking us to basically change the first, the header to gold. And you can see that it wants easy to be just a little bit bigger. So if I run this code, you'll see what we have from the previous challenge. And you can see that easy is just a little bit bigger and fun just a little bit bigger still. So let's see how we do that. Again, if you go to steps, it will talk you through these things in quite a lot of detail. And the first step is to create an H1 rule within the style element. Now remember, an element is anything between the opening and closing tags. So in this case, within the style. Now, again, I've already added something for the body to make the text just a little bit bigger so that you guys can see it well enough. But one thing that I would also do here, just because I personally find it easier when teaching these sorts of things, is to put everything on one line. And I'm going to do that just like that. So the reason for that is, like, the official way to do it is to have an opening squiggly bracket there. To take a step back, actually, when you look at body, and if I double click on body, you can see what's being targeted here. So the style is where I can target the body. You see it's framing the body down there. So basically anything within the body element, I can add rules to, just like that. And in this case, I've made it 30. I could say, I'm going to make that 50 and run my code, and it's going to be so big that you can't even, oh, I did 500, so big that you can't even see it. Let's do 50. So this is how you can make changes quite easy. I think this is one of the things that coders take a lot of satisfaction from, is that, I don't know if anybody in the audience, I suspect you have, but at some point you've built something or you fixed something, and you get that kind of sense of gratification of you fixed something, you built it, that sense of achievement that you actually did it. And that's what coding is. Like, you can see the changes that you're making in real time, and it's quite gratifying that way, I find. So it wants us to add some rules so that we can basically turn what we've got down here, this website here, into what's up here. And the first step is to create an H1 rule, and then within that rule, change the color to gold. So how do we do that? Well, first of all, let's get rid of that. Let's keep all nice and neat. So on the line underneath, I'm going to just type in H1. And again, if I double click on H1 there, you can see it puts a little frame around H1. So it's letting you know that it knows what you're targeting. So whenever you create a rule, it's not with pointy brackets, always with squiggly brackets. That's what they're called, squiggly brackets. And in this case, we're going to be changing the color. And very important to note that it's the American spelling of color, just the way it is. We have to get on with that. One other thing that I'll point out here as well is that you see how right now the text is in black. And when I add the R to color, it changes color to let you know that it understands what you're targeting. And then what you're targeting and then what you want it to do is always separated by a colon, as you can see in the rule above. So I'll create a colon, and I'll just type in gold. And then you end it with a closing squiggly bracket. I don't need the semicolon there. You would separate rules for the same thing. You'd separate rules for the semicolon. In this case, we don't need to do that. So let's see if that works. We can run the code and see if the text has turned gold. It has. Nice and easy. And you could type in anything there. You could type in red if you wanted to, and it will come out in red. And you can even get very specific later on, which I'll show you, where you can find any color. Like, there's millions of colors, right? You can find any color, and I can show you how to do that in the next challenge. But for now, they want this to be gold. And that seems to be working. Okay, what's the next step? Create a P rule below the H1 rule and set the color property to dark slate gray. Okay, that's nice and easy. Well, let's set a P rule. That's it, P. That's it, ready to go. Now, we already created a color rule just above this one. So you can save time by just copying and pasting that below here, except change the color to dark slate gray. Then again, I mean, there isn't much difference between black and dark slate gray, but you'll see this get just a little bit lighter when I run the code. Just a little bit there. Okay, what's the next step? Create an EM rule and make the font size 20 pixels. Now I'm going to make it larger than that in this example because I need it to be big enough for you guys to see. So all this means is that it's going to target again anything that is wrapped in an emphasis element. So again, when I double click on that, it will show me down here what I've got wrapped in emphasis, which is right now it's just the word easy. And all we want to do is change the font size I've actually got one of those up here, so again we can save time by just grabbing this one and applying it here, but change the font size in this instance to 35, and you'll see the word easy get just a little bit bigger because it's wrapped in emphasis. And I've told the style here that anything wrapped in emphasis should be this size. Just as simple as that. Okay, what's next? Create a strong rule and make the font size property 24. Again, in this case, I'll go bigger. So strong, again, targeting, I need to put a capital there. Again, if I double click this, it's going to tell me what's being targeted. And then I just, not typing right at all. And then again, I've already done this before, so I can save a little bit of time. I'll leave it here where I want it. I'll change the size in this case to 40. So you'll see the word fun again get just a little bit bigger. Nice and easy. Now that's basically it for that particular challenge. So look, we've created exactly what they've got over here. We've got a gold heading. We've got emphasis on easy and made easy bigger. And we've got fun. HTML is fun, and we've made the fun bold and also even bigger. Now, if I run the test on this, I don't think that will be accepted because I've got the wrong sizes here. Let's see, find out. Some tests have failed. So yes, the sizes that have failed. In this instance, I'm going to just move on to the next one because I have more to show you guys. So I hope this is starting to make sense because this is basically how websites are built. And I'm showing you in a relatively quick way because we're kind of time sensitive here. You guys are spending time with us today. I really appreciate that. And I hope that this will inspire you to take a look for yourself and see how you get on with it for yourself. So let's look at the next challenge. So again, up here, I would go to the second part of lesson 2, where you can see the code that we entered in the previous test. And I can expand upon this. So we've still got everything there. Again, if I go ahead and run the code, everything's here. But in this instance, you can see on the right, once again, that what it's asking us to do here is to make the entire header a different font, and also wants it to be all in uppercase. And the easy is now green, as you can see there. And fun is now in black, completely in black. It's not dark slate gray. So let's look at how we need to do that. First of all, the first step is to add a font family property to the body rule. By the way, guys, please don't feel like you don't understand what each of these things are like. Like font family, I mean, you know what a font is, obviously. And the reason why it's writing it this way is because that's how you'll write it in the code as well. So the steps do give you a lot of little hints as well. But basically, the first step is to change the font in the body to Arial. So basically, they want everything to be Arial. So that's everything within the body, right? So all we would do is add an additional rule over here. So remember I said before that all rules will be separated by a semicolon. And in this case, I'm going to just say font family. See, it changes color when it knows what you're doing. Separated by a colon, and it's going to be Arial. And it goes green when it knows what you're trying to do. So again, I go ahead and run my code, and you'll see all of this change to Arial, because that is everything in the body of the email. So body of the website. That's it. Everything's been turned to Arial. What's next? Change the style declaration for the H1 rule for the hex format of the color property and set it to FFD 700, which is just the hex code for gold. Now, I don't expect you guys to fully understand that just yet. So I'll show you this on a different website in a sec, but very often your employer, let's say, I hope that some of you will go on to become web developers. And often your employer might come to you and say, right, we're rebranding and our new color is going to be the light blue of Luke Skywalker's lightsaber or something, or whatever it might be. And my point is that you'll need to go find that color as a developer. Well, there's lots of ways that you can do that. And using hex codes is a great way to do it. And let me show you. So if I exit out of this real quick, and I set up this website just beforehand. So this is one of many different websites where you can get a hex code for any color that you can possibly imagine. Let's see if we can get close to Luke Skywalker's lightsaber. Kind of, you select roughly the color that you want here, and then you would move this to roughly where you think it's going to be. It's a bit lighter, something like that, for instance. So this color here, and here's the hex color right there. And I could literally take that, copy it, go back to our website, so you can all see. And you can see in here, I'm just going to paste the color. And when I run it, you'll see this lovely shade of blue that we just found on a different website. And this is one of the ways that you'll find any color that your employer might be interested in you finding, or sometimes different companies have like a series of colors that they use, and you would need to find those exact shades and colors within any kind of hex. Now, going back to that website real quick, actually, there are other ways that you can define colors, which we'll look at. So there's an RGB color, which quite literally just takes the three numbers of any particular color. Again, you can apply that in a similar kind of way, which I'll show you in just a sec. But I just wanted to give you guys an example of, it's not quite as simple, not always anyway, as just typing in red or blue or orange or gold or whatever. There's often opportunities, times when you'll need to go find a very specific color, and that's how you'll do it. So let's get on with what they want us to complete here. So first of all, I'm going to complete this particular challenge because all it's asked us to do is to change the color of the heading to this code. Now in this instance, I can quite literally just take that, just like I did from the website, and apply it here. And all that's done, it's still the same. If I typed in gold, it would be the exact same color as typing in hash FFD 700. That's the code for gold. But my point is, I wanted to just give you an example of changing those things. Okay, what's next? So add a text transform property. So what that means is that you'll transform your text to something else, usually uppercase, but there's other options. And in this case, we are going to be changing it to uppercase though. And let me type in the code for this. Well, now remember, all of our rules will be separated by a semicolon, and I'm just going to type in text transform. See, it changes color when it knows what you're doing. Separated by colon, and I'm going to say uppercase. Now, why would you need to change an entire thing, an entire sentence or header or whatever to uppercase when you could just type it out in uppercase? Well, there's a big reason, big reason. Because again, hopefully some of you will become web developers, and one day your boss might come up to you and say, hey Ben, the guys up top think that if we change the headers on all of our web pages on our website, if we change the headers to uppercase, we think it's going to be more eye-catching. And you might think, okay, I can do that, that's fine. Now, your website might have hundreds of pages, It might have thousands of pages, in fact. And you could look, like that text is right here. You can see it right there. Ooh. This line here is what dictates what's in the header. Now you could just go in there and manually type it in uppercase, just like I did with the HTML part. But if you've got thousands of web pages, that's going to be weeks, maybe months to do all of that. Or you can type in a rule that says anything that is H1 is this color and also is uppercase. I run my code and it's uppercase. Just as simple as that. And my point is, learning how to use the rules within the style is really important, because you can save yourself a lot of time and you can be far more creative with what you're building. Okay, what's next? So add a color to the property of EN with an RGB format of that there, which is going to change this. That's it's like a light green kind of color, as you can see it here. So very simply, we're going to add a color rule here, and I can quite literally copy and paste this, just like you would from any website. Once you've created the color that you want, you can either take the hex code or the RGB code and type in color is that, basically, and now you'll see easy change to the same green as over here. Boom. And what is next? So add a color to the property strong rule using the 000, which is just a dark black. It's like the pure black, basically. So very simply, again, we'd create a rule here, say color. I can spell it right. Color is just from there, for the sake of ease. Pop it up here, and now you'll see the dark slate grey of fun down here turn to be a much darker. That's it. So that is basically what coding is. Now, apologies if that is teaching anybody to suck eggs. The reason why we felt it was important to show this kind of stuff, honestly, is because the majority of our inquiries at the moment are certainly from people who are interested in new careers in tech, for obvious reasons, but don't really know what coding is or how it looks, how it works, if they can maybe even see themselves ever doing something like this. I have to say, honestly, in my experience, I find that pretty much anybody can learn to code so long as they want to. And there's so much stigma around it about, you know, you have to be a maths genius or, you know, a whiz with computers or whatever. It's so untrue. If you think those things, please get it out of your mind. What I've just shown you is the nuts and bolts of building a website. And I did it in half an hour. And imagine what you might learn in an hour, or in 5 hours, or in 100 hours. Imagine what you might learn. And that's my point, is that if you manage to follow even half of this, then get onto the coding assessment with us. Spend some time with us actually doing this stuff for yourself. Like I say, this part of it is completely free because it's the way we figure out whether or not a career in coding is even right for you in the first place. So we did have a few questions emailed in. So I want to run through those things with you because they are certainly commonly asked questions. So Irina has asked, hello Irina, she has asked, how long do your coding courses take to complete? That's a really good question. So we have quite a few different coding courses that will depend on you, on your time availability, what you might be most interested in getting into. I would say our two most popular coding courses would be either our full stack coding course, which again, if you're not sure what some of these things are, again, just get in touch and we can talk you through if that's the right one for you. But our full stack course is 600 hours. So for that, you need to be able to commit about 12 hours a week to get that done inside of 12 months. And another popular course, because many of our students work full-time jobs, so committing to 12 hours or more a week would be tricky. So that's perfectly normal, believe me. So for that reason, we have another shorter course, which is about half the length. It's called front-end web development, where you'll actually learn some of this stuff that we just went through now. And that's just 300 hours. It's actually about 250 to 300 hours. So for that, you need to put in around 4 or 5 hours a week to get that done inside of 12 months, which is obviously far more manageable. So my point is we have different options depending on you, honestly, and what's going to work best for you. We have Dave has emailed in, what is the best course to start with? It's got to be an entry-level coding course. If I'd say 80 or 90% of our students right now are easily at the entry-level stage, which is absolutely fine, perfectly normal. So that's why most of our coding courses are considered to be entry-level coding courses. And I want to add to that, actually. I think it's important for you guys to know that everything we do here at Learning People will result in you getting a job. So we don't teach anything unless there's a job at the end of it. Like, for instance, I get a lot of people come to me and say, I'd really love to get into games development. And that's a really cool thing to get into for obvious reasons. But I have to be honest with people and say, look, the likelihood of you getting a job in games development is slim, because the skills that you need to learn, really tough place to get started. The industry is really competitive. Because everybody wants to do it, it doesn't tend to pay especially well either. So that's a downside. But also, to my knowledge, there's, I think, maybe 5 or 6 games companies that operate here in the UK. So if you get 5 or 6 job rejections, well, that's it. That's the end of the road. So my point is, whilst we could teach those things, we would really only focus on the things that are actually going to get you a job. And maybe people move off into games development or various other things later on, but you would still start at a point with us where you're going to get a job, because everything we do here is about one course that takes you from wherever you are now all the way up to the point where you've got your first job. And our career team will help you with that. When you become ready, they'll go through your CV, covering letters, recruitment agencies, job boards, your LinkedIn account, your portfolio, mock interviews. I mean, they stay with you, whether it takes 6 weeks or 6 months, they stay with you until you get your first job. So thank you for that question, Dave. That was a good one. Jason is asking, is it better to create code on your own website / page, or seek instant softwares like WordPress or Wix to create one for you? What are the pros and cons? That's a really good question. Thank you, Jason. So yeah, there's absolutely software where you can kind of click and drag websites together, basically. The difference here is that not many organizations would really consider that to be true web development. And then with mid to large size organizations, they want websites to look very specific, to be unique, to be like a unique user experience for them. And all companies are looking for that unique experience for their website, because a website is the modern shop window. It's the user's first experience of that particular organization, and they want it to be as eye-catching, as grabbing, and as interactive and fun, I guess, as possible. And those things are hard to create when using one of those kind of cookie cutter website development programs where it just kind of does everything for you. So a good way to go if you're building smaller websites, for sure. You're not likely to find a great amount of work doing that, or to have a lot of career progression doing that. At some point, you've got to learn how to build websites from scratch if that's what you want to get into. So thank you for that question, Jason. We've got Al, who has asked, what's the best way to start building a code portfolio if I don't have any previous experience? You need to learn some basic code. So what I've just shown you guys here is the nuts and bolts of building simple websites. That's a really good place to get started. Now, if you're talking about building a portfolio to get a job, then yeah, that's going to be a different thing, because at its most simple, guys, anybody here thinking about a career in code and web development is a great place to get started for many reasons. But there's going to be a few things that you've got to have. And this is whether you do this with us or elsewhere. You've got to have a few things. Number one, you've got to have the skills that employers are actually looking for. And I know how stupidly obvious that sounds. I have this conversation with numerous people every day. Of course, you're going to need the skills that employers are looking for. But the reason why I put so much emphasis on this is because I spend a large amount of my time talking with people who have unfortunately maybe done kind of half-baked courses here or there, or in many cases, they have degrees in computer science or software engineering and similar. And they're talking to us because they can't get a job. And it's always for the same kinds of reasons. What they've learnt is often years out of date or wrong entirely, and they never seem to have anything to show for it, like a portfolio. So that's why all of our coding courses have you building a portfolio. You get a qualification with most of them as well. Some of them are more specific, but you get a qualification with most of them. And it's about having those three things: the right skills, qualification ideally, and the portfolio. Is by far the most important thing, is the portfolio. What can you do? Because employers these days have just become a little frustrated by those who often look good on paper, but then can't do the job, can't do the work. And that's really frustrating for employers today. So having the right skills and qualifications is going to get you interviews. That's the easy part. Our career team will see to that with you. But at interview stage, the only thing they're going to want to see from you guys is your portfolio, because there's no clearer evidence of what you can do for them than what you've already done. And that's why you'll build a portfolio with most of our coding courses, especially the kind of career ready ones. For instance, our full stack course will have you building 5 major projects and 7 minor projects, all of which are designed for you to be able to show off different skill sets that employers are actually looking for. And that's the part that will actually get you guys a job. So thank you for that question, Al. I hope I answered that in a really long way. And Manny has asked, is there any support for CV and interview? Yes, I just talked through this. So yeah, the career service is incredible. I'd encourage you guys actually, I do webinars every month. This is the first time I've actually done any coding on a webinar. So I hope it was good, and we'll tweak it. I hope it was interesting for you guys to just get a sense of what it is. Usually it's more of a discussion with some of our existing students and with our career team as well. So if you guys take a look on our YouTube channel, under videos there, you'll find lots of previous webinars that I've done where we talk with the students, where we have our career team actually talking through with the student, okay, and then what did we do to help you get your first job, and so on and so forth. And they'll go through it in a lot more detail. So take a look at that stuff, but in short, kind of what I've already said, they'll go through all of the small details with you in regards to making sure you are as career ready to get that first job as soon as possible. So guys, that is all of the questions. Thank you so much for taking the time to spend with us today. We really, really appreciate it. And I would encourage all of you to get in touch with us. Like I said right at the beginning, everybody here is here because you've interacted with us in some way, shape or form in the past. And whether it's just an email or a phone call or just inquired on our website, whatever it might be. So go back to that, get back in touch with us. You can email inquiries@learningpeople.com if you'd like, that's easy, .co.uk, inquiries@learningpeople.co.uk. And if you just say what you're interested in, they can direct you to the relevant department if you can't find whatever correspondence you've had before. And I'd say if you're thinking about a career in coding, then just talk with one of us about it. I'm not the only coding specialist here, there's a bunch of us, and we can talk you through a little bit about yourself, so we can learn a little bit about you, so that we know that what we do is right for you as well. And then we can talk you through the coding assessment, get you set up on that, really make sure that it's definitely the right move for you guys. To complete the whole thing in total, you're only looking at about 3 or 4 hours. As you can see from what I've done, my presentation, you don't have to do it all in one go. You can do a half hour here, an hour there, just whatever suits you guys. And if you get stuck anywhere as well, please don't beat yourself up over that, guys. Like, we can talk you through it. We're happy to. This is part of the process. Yeah, if it turns out that coding is a viable a career choice for you guys, great. Then you're exactly the kind of candidates that we're looking for. And let's talk about which courses might be suitable for you to actually achieve those goals of a career in tech. So once again, thank you so much for spending the time with us. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm going to be doing another one next month, I suspect, but get in touch. I'd happily talk with any of you. You can ask for me directly if you'd like. But like I said, if you just go back to any correspondence that you've had already, and we can go from there. So that's me signing off. Thank you guys. It's been a pleasure. Take care.